Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Premises Personal Licences Subcommittee on Wednesday, the 15th of October. We'll move to item 1 on the agenda, which is the election of a chairman for the meeting. Councillor Wiggins.
I'd like to put you forward, please.
Thank you. To move. Before we start this morning, I'd just like to introduce ourselves. I'm Councillor Jo Henderson, so I'll be chairing the meeting today. We've got Councillor Anne Wiggins, who's one of our other councillors, Councillor Andrea Cousins. We've got Councillor Bill Davison, who's a standby member, so he won't be taking part today unless somebody becomes ill or somebody declares an interest. And then we have our legal person here, Sarah, this morning, and we've got Katie from Democratic Services. We've got Michael Cook, our licensing manager, Emma King, who's one of our licensing officers, and our lovely Bethany, who's here. Lovely. So before we start, if you introduce yourselves so we're aware of who everybody is today. Obviously, the objectors.
Hello, yes, I'm Paul Simmons. I'm a resident of Sir Walsall Dwarf, which is just behind the pub.
Lovely.
I'm Ruth Stubbs, Town Council.
Lovely, thank you.
Nigel Barker, one of the neighbours, Maltings Wharf.
Lovely, thank you. And the applicant.
Good morning. My name's Ewan McGregor from TLT, and I'm representing the applicant.
Lovely.
Name's Peter Alcock. I'm the DPS for Skinner's Arms.
Lovely. Good morning. Thank you. Right, so we will move to item 2 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received no apologies for absence or substitutions for this meeting.
Thank you. Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting, which can be found on pages 5 to 8. Can we confirm that these are correct? Yep. Councillor Cousins and Councillor Wiggins seconded. Thank you. For declarations of interest, Council is invited to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, and the nature of it in relation to any item of the agenda. Councillor Wiggins.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare for the public record that I hold a personal licence, but it has no bearing on my being a member of this subcommittee. Thank you.
So we'll now move to today's item number 5, which is the report of the Assistant Director of Policy and Support, A1, variation of a premises licence, The Skinners, Station Road, Manningtree, CO11 1DX, can be found on pages 9 to 48. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. We're here today to hear an application submitted for variation of an application under the Licensing Act 2003. The application is in relation to the Skinners, located in Station Road, Manningtree. Application number 2500473 Prem VA. The premises has been described as a public house with the current hours, opening hours, Monday to Thursday 10 till 1, Fridays and Saturdays 10 till 1:30, Sundays 10 till 23:30. The premises licence covers the following: the sale of alcohol on and off the premises, performance of live music, performance of recorded music, and provisions for similar entertainment. All of the current licensable activities finish 30 minutes before the closing time. The application in front of you today is to extend the sale of alcohol on and off the premises Fridays and Saturdays until 1:30 and Sundays until 1, with 30-minute drinking up time. This would result in the application opening hours Monday to Thursday 10 till 1. That's no change to the licence. Fridays and Saturdays 10 till 2 and Sundays 10 till 1:30. A plan layout of the premises and location plan can be found on pages 30 and 31 of the report. The applicant has not outlined any steps in the application to promote the 4 licensing objectives other than those already attached to the licence, and this can be found on page 28 of the report, with the original conditions attached to the premises licence on page 35 and 37. Representations can be made either against or in support of the application. All responsible authorities have been notified and consulted with the application as standard procedure, and no representations have been received from those responsible authorities. The licensing authority received 10 representations from members of the public, and these can be found on pages 39 to 48. Following objections to the proposed variation, the agent has agreed and volunteered a revised application as follows. Sunday has been withdrawn and will remain with licensing activities finishing at 2300 hours, closing time 23:30. Friday and Saturday variation hours applied will still stand, with the additional conditions being volunteered. 1. Save for those persons who wish to leave the premises temporarily, for example for smoking, the external garden shall close no later than 2300 hours. And 2, that the notice shall be displayed in the rear garden requesting customers to respect the local residents. The sale of alcohol on and off the premises Fridays and Saturdays until 1:30, with the additional 30 minutes closing at 2 o'clock. Due to the proposed amendments, the licensing authority have consulted with the objectors. 3 objectors have said that they would withdraw their representation with the agreement of the amendments and the conditions proposed. 4 have stated that they wish the representation to stand, and 3 have not commented further. For committee's referral, objectors 1, 5 and 8 have withdrawn. Objector 2, 4, 6 and 7 have said that they wish their representation to remain, and objector 3, 9 and 10 have not commented back from that email. I've got further documents here to circulate to members following the mediation for your attention. It just highlights the comments that have been sent back following the consultation. Each application must be considered in its own rights and on its own merits, only on how it might impact on the 4 licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and the protection of children from harm. All of the human rights information and Section 182 guidance is available in the report. Chair and members, you're therefore asked to determine the application, taking into consideration its own, on its own rights and merits, as well as the relevant information submitted today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions at this time, committee, for our licensing officer at all?
Yes, I just wanted to put forward to the applicants, please, with the situation of it being in a residential area.
Councillor Cousins, it's just for our
I
licensing
beg your
officer at this stage.
pardon. Sorry.
Is there any questions from Michael?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So we'll move to the applicant. If you've got anything you'd like to address the committee with today? No, if you'd like to address the committee, yeah. Thank you.
Good morning. I had a fairly eventful night last night when I came to, more eventful than I'd anticipated, is that the hotel I was staying in was evacuated because of a fire. But the disaster was averted because otherwise I would have ended up having to present this application in my pyjamas. But everything is fine. I have Mr. Alcock with me. Mr. Alcock is the DPS at the premises. Just by way of background, he's been in the trade for 4 years. Prior to running Skinner's, he ran a pub in Sheringham, and just so that you have some confidence as to his ability, the acoustics in here, I get a lot of echo. In his time there, he built up a very good relationship with the police. The premises were subject to no regulatory enforcement action, and he runs the pub with his wife Alison. She'd hoped to be here today, but obviously is back at the pub and running the pub. She has been in the trade for 30 years, and they live on the premises. The application, as your officers kindly set out, seeks a modest extension on Fridays and Saturday nights by an additional 30 minutes. The application, again, has been outlined by your officer in relation to Sunday has been withdrawn, so all we're considering is the application insofar as it impacts on Fridays and Saturday nights. And it's also important to note that insofar as this application is concerned, there is no application to extend the hours for provision of regulated entertainment, and those are set out in the licence, which appears at page 27 of the report. I've got 2 copies of the report, and they both have slightly different page numbers, so I apologise if I get those page numbers wrong. But if you look at the licence, insofar as regulated entertainment is concerned, there is no application to change those hours. I've introduced myself to the representatives who are here today in advance of this meeting. Suffice it to say that Mr. Alcock has not met them before, but it was helpful for me, simply as a matter of courtesy, if nothing else, to introduce myself to the representatives. So far as the premises are concerned, just to give you a little sense of what Mr. Alcock does at the pub. The premises licence is held by Punch Taverns Limited. They operate licensed premises across the UK, and at the Skinners, Mr. Alcock is the tenant. They are community premises. They employ 7 members of the local community. They have a darts team and a pool team in local leagues. They support local charities, Acorn Village, Manningtree, First Responders and the RNLI. And they have also offered to purchase equipment and sponsor flower beds for Manningtree street cleaners and are awaiting a decision for them. And the reason I say all of that is that it is a premise that is invested in the local community. They hold regular meetings with the police, and following a meeting with the police licensing officer, Mr. Bennett, it was agreed, and Mr. Alcock offered to host pub watch meetings, something that he did at his previous pub in Sheringham, and that remains a project in progress, but it is something that Mr. Alcock is keen to revive in Manningtree in the same way that he did when he was working in Sheringham. In advance of submitting the application, Punch engaged with the police, and they confirmed that they were comfortable with a short extension of time on Friday and Saturday through to 1:30 in the morning. And it's therefore no surprise, or perhaps of no surprise, that the police, nor indeed any of the responsible authorities, have made a representation to this application. And it also merits commenting that the premises are already permitted a series of extensions each year on May, Spring, August bank holidays, as well as Easter weekend, Friday through to Monday, and then also Thursday on a Easter bank holiday, as well as Christmas Eve and Boxing Day. And the premises are also permitted to benefit from the standard exemptions on New Year's Eve. And the reason I say that is that that's an additional hour on all of those days, which the pub has operated since Mr. Alcock has been the DPS and the manager, or the tenant rather. And those extensions have not caused any issue. That's an hour. We are seeking a brief extension of 30 minutes. In all the time that Mr. Alcock has been the tenant of the premises, he has not received one single complaint made directly to him, or through the police, or through the town council. And so on any metric, he and his wife are good operators. They operate a well-run pub, and one which is engaged in the local community, and one which promotes the licensing objectives, and if this application is granted, will continue to promote the licensing objectives. As your officer has outlined, on receipt of the representations, we provided an update to all of the representors, confirming that the application, so far as Sunday is concerned, was to be withdrawn, and that we were simply pursuing the application for Friday and Saturday nights. We had further discussion with one of the representors who's now withdrawn, and two further conditions are added to the application, and those have been outlined by your officer, Mr. Cook. But just so that I've said it as well, is that the garden will close at 11 o'clock at night, no later than 11, and notices displayed in the rear garden requesting customers to respect local residents. And as a consequence of that, three of the representors have withdrawn their representation. I've read the representations, and you will also have read those representations, but can I just make a number of observations on those? None have previously been in touch with the pub to raise their concerns about the way that the premises operate. Had any party expressed concerns to Mr. Alcock and his wife, they would have engaged and taken steps to address these. They would also have been willing to attend a town council meeting, and are indeed happy to do so in the future if any issues are identified, and also if the town council wants support in supporting local initiatives, as Mr. Alcock has done with other local ventures. And it's fair to say that Mr. Alcock did review the minutes of the previous town council meetings, and we can't find any reference in there to existing issues in the way that the pub, they certainly haven't been raised or reflected in the minutes of the town council meetings. And the noise complaints, which are referred to in the town council representation, again, we can't find any reference to that in there. But had they done so, and had they engaged with Mr. Alcock, then he would, of course, have taken those seriously. He would have engaged with the town council and acted accordingly. There is a suggestion that this pub, if this application is granted, will have hours significantly later than the Crown and also the Red Lion. That is, I'm afraid, incorrect. The Red Lion is already permitted to stay open until 1 in the morning on Friday and Saturday. If they don't operate those hours, that is on them. But they have a license to operate until 1 o'clock in the morning. The suggestion that the pub will become a venue of last resort as people walk home to have a drink, there is no evidence that that currently happens, and there's no evidence that that would actually happen if this application were granted. There are concerns raised about the lack of policing in Manningtree, and it's self-evident that the police have not made a representation to this application. You'll be an experienced committee, and you will know that if the police do have concerns, then they make representations and matters come before the committee to consider the concerns that the police have raised. There are concerns in the representation insofar as Sundays are concerned. That part of the application has been withdrawn, and there are also concerns in relation to the use of the garden, and we have offered conditions in relation to the use of the garden, limiting it to no later than 2300, save for those people who might wish to, for example, go out and have a cigarette. There is a suggestion in some of the representations that the hours should be reduced or that a more general review of the licence be undertaken. There is legal authority that on a variation, your application is simply limited to the application itself and what is before you, and not a wider, a more broader review of the way that the premises operate. If there is a desire to review the licence, then the responsible authorities, you as a licensing authority, the local residents, the local town council, can make an application to review the licence, bring it back before the committee, and if at that stage it's felt appropriate.
We are well aware of, obviously,
Okay,
our
fine.
terms.
Okay,
that's why
that's
we're
fine.
on the committee. Thank
you. The picture that's painted by the representations does not give a fair reflection of how the premises operate, and what I would say to you as a committee is that you do not need to take my word for that, but the fact that the police and the environmental health officer have not made representations to the application, and also there is no reference in your report to any complaints having been received by the licensing authority. Just very quickly, I'm going to be probably 2 more minutes. On law, policy and guidance, as your officer has said, each application is on its merits. The authority at paragraph 2.1 of the national guidance is that the authority should look to the police as their main source of advice on crime and disorder. Each responsible authority will be an expert in their respective field, and in some cases it's likely that a particular responsible authority will be the licensing authority's main source of advice in relation to a particular licensing objective. And the national guidance sets out the key role that responsible authorities play in the licensing process, and that they should be your primary or main source of advice in relation to a particular licensing objective. And just one final comment. In the discussions that I had with Mr. Simmons, the licensing hearing regulations, and for your legal advisor's reference, it's 19.4, is that representation should be limited to that which is contained within the comments that are made to the committee should be limited to those that are contained within the representation that is before you. And so representals cannot stray beyond the boundaries of that which they brought to the committee's attention. I have nothing further to say at this stage. I dare say that Councillor Cousins has already given us advance notice that she may have a question, but I have nothing further to say at the moment, and that is the application. I appreciate I get an opportunity at the end to sum up, but I will try desperately hard not to repeat all of which I've just said.
Thank you for giving that presentation to us. Do we have any questions for the applicant from our councillors this morning?
I'd like to thank you very much for that, because that has actually answered some of my questions that I wanted to put to Mr. Alcock as the designated supervisor. But I would really like to ask one thing, why you feel it necessary to extend to 2 o'clock, because this has gone really from a public house to a club, and I can understand it's a lovely place for people to go and spend time, But I do feel for the residents, and I do feel about the noise. And taxis, would they still be operating at 2 in the morning to collect people to take them home? That really was one of my worries, that there would be people, you know, you've gone from 1:30 to 2, or you're looking to go to 2 on 2 days a week. And the other pubs, you were mentioning about the license in the other pubs where they could stay open later. But I had a feeling maybe that people would go from one pub to another if you're open that much later. And again, to me, it's the noise and the disruption. And I just wondered what you'd put in place. I know you've talked about, we've heard today about the garden closing at 11 for smokers. Would they not go out the front of the pub and stand on the pavement maybe? Things like that. It's just, I'm trying to think of what the residents are feeling with the noise that obviously, you know, is generated from people drinking at those sort of hours. And 2 o'clock, I just wondered if you had anything extra that you're putting on. I know you have live music, and you have. I just worry about the antisocial behaviour and the noise that would come up from this. If you have anything that you have put in place already that would help.
Thank you, Councillor Cousins. If you would like to respond, thank you.
Can I deal with your question in two ways? I'll give you the legal answer, and Mr. Alcock will give you the practical answer on the day-to-day basis. And I think your question was, why do we want to stay open? And it's a fair question, but the legal question is whether or not the application will undermine the licensing objectives. So that's it's not so much about why, but will we be promoting the licensing objectives? Insofar as turning the pub from a public house to a club, there is no application to change the hours for the regulated entertainment. So those stay as they currently are. And insofar as the antisocial behaviour is concerned, the lack of observation from the police and the environmental health is compelling evidence that these premises do not currently generate antisocial behaviour to the levels that would force them into making a representation. And if and if there was, they would have made a representation to the application. It's also fair, and Mr. Alcock will develop this, is that he lives on the premises, and when he goes to bed at night and the pub is shut and has been shut for some time, there is noise on the street outside which cannot be put at the door, literally, of the pub. It's an hour or so after the pub has shut. So not every noise that is generated within Manningtree at that time of night can be blamed on Mr. Alcock and the operation of the pub. He suffers when he's gone to bed after the pub is shut, but that is not his fault, and that is not the pub's fault. But if Mr. Alcock just wants to explain why, then I'll leave the floor to him.
Okay, so the reasons why, if you look at the extensions you have on the bank holidays, by allowing the extra time, it allows people to, rather than being a mass influx of people all waiting for taxis, waiting for lifts to get home, people leave in a generally more straightforward manner. Does that make sense? Yeah. We're not looking to really change anything. I mean, even with, if we're successful, just because we have the hours doesn't mean we have to use it. I mean, let's be realistic. I'm human at the end of the day. I have to sleep at some point. If the pub's empty or starting to quieten down, I'm quite happy to close it up, you know? So that's not really a concern either.
Are there any further questions, Councillor Wiggins? No. I've got a couple of questions. On page 28 of our agenda, which I believe you have in front of you, obviously on that form, it's been left blank, and I just wondered if there was a reason for that, for all of the licensing objectives and what, you know, what you can put in place, why that page has been left blank. Thank you.
The report I'm looking at page 28 has the license, but I'm presuming you're referring to the application? Yeah. And I don't, the report I have doesn't, do you mind if I just get a copy of the report that's behind me in case I can see?
You wouldn't mind sticking with obviously our agenda that we're working with today? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when the am I on? Yes. So when the application was submitted, there are a number of conditions that are already on the license, and those appear at page 30 and 31 of the report. We did not believe, and there was no request from the police or the environmental health officer, that we bolster the existing conditions on the license to promote the licensing objectives. On receipt of the representations from the those that have made representations to the application, further conditions have been offered and accepted by 3 of the representors. One is in relation to the use of the garden.
Can I just ask, were they submitted? They weren't submitted with this application at that time. So the question I'm asking to you is, you know, why was it left blank? Did you not feel to perhaps it would be helpful to the committee or to some of the objectors to see things that you have in place?
Well, the steps that we already have in place are on the licence as it stands, and it often happens with licensing applications that as they develop and as representations may be received, is that additional steps are added to the licence in consideration of the representations that are received. But at the time the application was submitted, you're right, no steps were added at that stage, partly because the way the premises had operated since Mr. Alcock took over back in January of this year, that there had been no complaints or adverse comments from anybody about the way that the premises operate. Now, since the application has been in, and as you know, we have removed that part of the application that relates to Sunday, because that was a source of concern for some of the representors, and we have already added, we have added further conditions.
And if I could just have some clarity, obviously on the external garden, that you're saying from 2,300 hours, it will only be used by smokers. Is that what you're saying? How can you obviously explain to the committee how that condition will be policed? Thank you.
It's a small pub. There will be signs placed at the door. The door can't obviously be locked because it will be a fire exit, but there will be staff will be told that the garden is shut at no later than 2,300. It will be patrolled by members of staff. I'm presuming that there is CCTV out there, and if that is abused, then customers would be asked to leave. But there are members of staff who will ensure that the garden is not accessible to patrons any later than 2,300 hours unless they wish to leave temporarily to smoke.
How would it also be policed if somebody was wanting to obviously access the door that's open? How would it be policed if they wanted to walk out with their drink in their hand, as well as their cigarettes, you know, how will you stop people still being able to drink in the garden? Thank you.
The consumption of alcohol is not a licensable activity. If somebody wishes to take their drink outside with a cigarette, then that doesn't offend the licensing objectives or the licensable activities. So somebody could take a drink outside. If you feel that it's appropriate that drinks shouldn't be taken outside when somebody wishes to drink, then that is a condition that you would be entitled to place on the licence.
So hypothetically, people could still use the beer garden after 11 o'clock by saying they were going outside for a cigarette, and they could continue to use the garden.
If the gardens cannot stay, the use of gardens for pubs is to a large extent determined by the weather. And so there will be many days during the course of the year when the garden is going to be closed way before 11 o'clock at night because people simply won't want to be out there. But after 11 o'clock, if somebody wants to go, there has got to be, it is one of the unfortunate things about the smoking legislation is that people have to go and go somewhere to smoke. And that area is in the external part of the premises. People can go out. If they want to go out and have a cigarette, then they can. And there will be signs and there will be notices placed at the door saying that the garden cannot be used after 11 o'clock at night. If that's a condition that you would like to put on the licence, about the garden should be closed after no later than 2300 and that people can only go outside to smoke, then you are perfectly entitled to place that condition on the licence. It's a policy that is operated at the present time and it works well.
Are there any further questions to the applicant at this point from councillors? Thanks. You okay?
We'll come back later.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll now move. Do any of the objectors have any points of clarification they would like from the applicant at this time? Yep, thank you. If you could introduce yourself again before.
Sorry, I'm Nigel Barker. I'm one of the neighbours overlooking.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you want me to speak to my objection now, or am I asking?
It's just if you've got any clarification you would like from the applicant on what they've just
I'd just like some
presented.
clarification that I believe Mr McGregor has never actually visited the pub or even visited Manningtree. So he's explaining how it operates at the moment. I don't think he's got any. I don't think that's definitive at all. To say it works well, but if you want me to speak later about my objections, I will do. Yeah.
The objectors.
Hello, Paul Simmons. My house backs directly onto the car park at Skinner's. People leave the pub now at 1:30. They don't jump straight in their cars. Often they're chatting. Excuse me. During the summer months, I've had to have my windows in the back bedroom closed on Fridays and Saturdays because of the noise level. It disturbs people that sleep there. And even in the front, I've had to close the windows because the sound bounces off the house next to me and enters my bedroom. I've never objected to it before. I've accepted it as the status quo. But adding another half an hour just seems to me unnecessary and unacceptable. Thank you.
Oh, I'd like to mention the other point that just because there's been no complaints and there's not criminal levels of antisocial behaviour doesn't mean that it doesn't upset the neighbours.
No questions, that's fine. So did you want to make any sort of statements yourself to the committee today while you're here? You haven't got to, but if you like to, that's perfectly okay. Thank you.
Mine is just reiterating really what has been in the report and the complaint from the council. The premises are in close proximity to residential premises. Extended hours will increase late night noise from customers leaving. We find it hard to believe that the closing of a garden will actually stop people coming in should they wish to do so. We already have problems with litter and noise, and this will make it worse. And the more antisocial behaviour, which is at times a problem in Manningtree. Manningtree is a very small, friendly town, and antisocial behaviour is not something we expect and we don't want. There are lots of mature residents and children and vulnerable and elderly residents, and this will have an effect on their health. Purely worrying about it is bad enough, but to actually have the noise until 2 o'clock in the morning is just not acceptable. The neighbouring public houses, they do close at 11 o'clock. They may have a licence later, but they accept that it's not acceptable in the town, and so they close earlier. They don't take advantage of that licensing time that they've got. So, you know, we don't feel that somebody else should be able to just walk over that and open till whenever they want to. Well, not whenever they want to, but until the time that they're suggesting. That's all I've got really. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any further questions?
Can I just ask the applicant who actually wants the extra hours? Is it Punch Taverns or is it you as the applicant?
It's the applicant. It's the tenant. The tenant, yes. It has to be agreed by Punch, but the application is made by the tenant. Sorry, the application is made by Punch Taverns because they're the licence holders. But there is a discussion that takes place between the tenant and Punch before the application is submitted.
Apparently the tenant's only been here since
Excuse
January.
me, if you could come through
Sorry,
the chair.
I'd like to understand when the opening hours were extended previously, because it wasn't, it's not all the time that we've been living in Manningtree, I know that. It didn't used to be open till 2 in the morning. So there must have been a previous time that we weren't aware of, because if I hadn't seen a little A4 sign stuck on a fence, I wouldn't have known about this. So previously, extension to the opening hours was slipped through, I'd like to understand...
Can I just say it's not... Obviously, we've got what's before us today. We're not here to discuss previous applications. So that's something, if you'd like to perhaps email our licensing officer after the meeting, he'd be able to provide you with that information.
So the other question I would like to ask is, what were you thinking, wanting to open until 2 in the morning on a Sunday? It's... I mean, it looks to me as though what's happened is...
That's actually been withdrawn. If you could stick to what's before us today. We have to go
I'd like to
by
finish
the
addressing
agenda.
that, because
You
I can see that
You can
this...
finish, but if you could stick to what's on, obviously, before us, thank you. Are there any further points of clarification you'd like before we go?
Yes, please, Chair. Going back to the applicant, thank you for the information you've given us. You did, however, say that there were no objections directly to the pub as such. So therefore, we have very little to work on in that area. But what I will say is this is in a small town with a high residential population of young people, old people. If I did a Google search, because I haven't been to that area of Manningtree, to be fair, and it's houses on a 360-degree basis of people who've moved there because it's a beautiful village. It's a lovely, quiet, lovely village. And I do feel, however, this has evolved. The hours, what has happened here has possibly evolved from being a small pub. You looking at your website, people visit you for your fabulous food and what you offer. But I do feel that it has evolved into something much bigger, and as it is now. So for people to object, it's something that's an insidious thing. It just slides along, and it has evolved into something bigger. And maybe now's the chance for people to have their say. And I know it's a public meeting, but maybe it is now that they can air their views and we can then be more informed about the situation. Thank you.
Do you mind if I answer that?
No, if you'd like to come back, that's fine.
Yes. Councillor Cousins, when I say that there have been no complaints made to the pub, it's broader than that, actually. Is that no one has come to the pub and said, look, on a Friday and a Saturday night, and Mr. Alcock is approachable. He's tried to invest himself in the local community. And if somebody had come, if any of the representors who are here today, or those other representors had said, we've had some complaints, or the town council had said, we've had some complaints about the way that your pub is operating, or some concerns about the way that your pub is operating, can we have a chat, or can you come along to the town council meeting to discuss how we can maybe improve things, because you're a valuable part of the local community for everything that you give back. He would have engaged in that, but it came as a surprise that none of these issues had been raised with us before. And the point I will make to you at the end is that if matters were as bad as is being suggested, then it is perhaps unsurprising that they have not been raised with the pub before now. Insofar as the creep of the hours, the extension of the hours is concerned, I don't know the answer to that question. And as your chair said, we have to play with what's in front of us. But it's fair to say that the current licence has certainly been in place since the start of this year. There's been no application since Mr. Alcock has been the DPS there to change the hours. So it's been in place for at least 9 months, probably, well, certainly longer. I don't have the details of when those hours that we currently have were granted by this authority. But if the hours historically were closing earlier and we wanted to extend them, that would have necessitated an application in the same way that we've made this application. And if there were representations at that time, then it would have come before the committee, and you as a committee would have made your determination at that stage. I'm not sure how helpful that is in getting us to where the question that's been asked. But you simply can't, the hours can't creep without there being some public scrutiny. And that's why we find ourselves here today.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, Councillor Wiggins?
I'm just concerned. I mean, I know I'm probably going over old ground that we've spoken about already. My concern is for the residents, and I have been down there. I do go into Manningtree, and it's the fact that people don't necessarily say when they've had their drink, they don't think about the noise that they're making, and it's always louder than they think it is. I feel for the residents that live nearby because, you know, it's a 7-day week. It's not necessarily about opening late on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because now weeks are just 7 days. I know that children go to school Monday to Friday, I appreciate that. But I just think, and I also think that whilst that Mr. Alcock hasn't had people complaining to him about the noise, I do think that people that live nearby might not necessarily know where to go. They wouldn't think, oh, I could go to the parish council and get, the town council and go
Have you
there
got-
and...
Can I ask Councillor Wiggins, is it a question, or we'll have our deliberations next
Okay,
week?
okay,
Thank you.
okay, I'd say it in deliberations, thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor, just very quickly on your point about people don't know where to go. There are a number of opportunities for people to pick up. There's a phone number on the website. There's an email address on the website. And people, if they wish to, can speak to Mr. Alcock. So there are avenues and opportunities. We're not living in the dark here. There are opportunities for the local community to engage with the pub.
Are there any sort of closing comments that either yourselves, the objectors, or the applicant would like to make?
When I said I wondered what they were doing, wanting to open it up until the early hours of Sunday morning, I think it just exemplifies that this is trying to creep up and creep up and creep up. I mean, or is this just it's a negotiating technique, isn't it? When you're doing diplomacy, you ask for something outrageous, and then when you get pushback, you say, oh, well, no, we didn't want that after all. And then you slip through. So an extra half hour, I think it's just the thin end of the wedge. It'll be an extra half hour. We'll go back next year. It'll be, can we have Sunday opening till this, because it's been all right. The garden is part of the car park. It's next to the pub. The pub is on Station Road. You can walk out the front door with a beer in your hand and sit on a bench. Any noise that's going on at 2 in the morning in Manningtree is from the Skinner's Arms. It's not from anybody else. I mean, there's no other premises that are open. When you live near a pub, and I've previously lived even closer to a pub, you accept that that's it. That's part of it, and a lot of it is just it's grudging, low-level annoyance, and it's when, frankly, somebody's taking the proverbial by trying to extend the hours even longer, just by creeping it up a little bit. That's suddenly when you suddenly think, hang on, I really don't think this is right, because you're making the enjoyment of where we live, you're diminishing it, and you're doing it just for your own gain. And why is it suddenly now that we have to have this pub open till the early hours of Sunday morning and creeping on even later on Friday and Saturday night? And I'm sure it's a perfectly, I mean, why should we have to put up with this just for somebody else so they can make a bigger buck? And I was going to say, it's not the people in the pub. The pub is quite well soundproofed. The live music isn't an issue. The issue is when people come out of the pub, they're in the car park, they're slamming doors, they're shouting at one another, they're swearing. They have the occasional fight that we see down there. I get a good view from our kitchen window. So that's what the issue is. It's kicking out time. It's not even people going out to have a cigarette at midnight. And that is just laughable, the idea that putting up a sign saying, please be considerate of the neighbours. I mean, nobody pays any attention to that. And the idea that you're going to police people and say, hang on, you finish your bag, back in the pub. It's not going to happen. This is just pretty words. And as I said, Mr. McGregor's pretty words. He hasn't even visited the pub, so. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Comment, if I may. This is, as I've said before, this is a small town, a friendly small town, size of a village. We don't want this sort of extension, this sort of development. It's better for a large town. We've got a lot of areas that are being built around us, and this will make people come into the town and stay late because there's nowhere where they are. The new developments are not having any pubs or anywhere. So they will come in here. We've noticed this is beginning to happen, and they stay late and get all the adverse noise and everything late on in the evening. You did say, your councillor did say that, you know, it's turning into a club. Well, okay, it's not officially, but that's the way it's seeming to us. That it's becoming a late night venue for everybody. Thank you.
Come back obviously to the applicant if you'd like any closing comments before we go and do our deliberations. Thank you.
Yes, there are a few things that I would like to say about this. I think it was Mr. Barker? Is that right? Said any noise at 2 a.m. in the morning, it has to be the Skinners. I don't know where that comes from. Please.
Sorry, I live in Manningtree and you don't.
Any noise at 2 a.m. in the morning has to come from the Skinners. That can't be right. The pub at the moment, everybody is out by 1:30. And that's the latest time that they leave on those days when the pub is able to provide licensable activities until 1 in the morning. And so the pub is being blamed for all of the ills that may happen in or near the premises. And if there was evidence before the committee, if there were, and I am going to go back to this, and I apologise that I've made this point already, is that if the police had had reports of issues in relation to antisocial behaviour, if the environmental health officer had had reports of noise disturbance, if your licensing officer had had reports of noise, antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder, they would be in your report, and they are not. And the national guidance says that licensing law is not the primary mechanism for the control of nuisance and antisocial behaviour by individuals once they are away from licensed premises, and therefore beyond the direct control of an individual club or business holding the licence, certificate or authorisation concerned. And that's at paragraph 14.13 of the national guidance. I appreciate the question that Councillor Cousins asked in relation to why. The better question, or the right question, and I mean no disrespect to you, I understand why you asked the question, is whether or not this application promotes the licensing objectives. And the absence, and it's not just complaints, but the absence of any comments made to the operators of the pub, and Mr. Alcock in particular, over the last 9 months, is a factor that you should take into account. It's not just simply saying, we're really unhappy with this, we want to shut you down, or we want to clip your wings. It's a simple conversation so that communities can work together. And that's precisely what Mr. Alcock has done since he's come to the pub. This isn't about a creep of trying to get half an hour here, half an hour in 6 months. You deal with what is before you at the moment, and you look.
We're well aware of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I felt the need to say it, but I apologise. If there are issues with the pub, then they should be brought to the committee's attention. If the way that the premises operate is so egregious, then they should be brought to the committee's attention. It's not converting from a pub to a nightclub. It's a very modest extension for half an hour The licensing objectives, certainly since Mr. Alcock has been there, have been promoted, and the licensing objectives will continue to be promoted with this application being granted. The additional conditions that have been offered following the representations that were made to us by members of the local community. The fear, and I put this in this way, about what may happen in relation to this application if this application is granted, is not sufficient for you to refuse this application. You look at how
well, obviously, we'll come to our deliberations and we will make our decision and bring that back to you. It's not for you to sit there and tell
No,
us
I'm just putting you
what you perceive we should be doing. Thank you. If you could close up your comments.
I would invite you to grant this application on the basis that Mr. Alcock has promoted the licensing objectives in the time that he's been there. It is a short extension. The application promotes the licensing objectives. The absence of any representations from any of the responsible authorities is of significance and something that should weigh heavily on your mind when you determine the application. Mr. Alcock is committed to working with the local community, and if the town council, the first time that he's met these people, the representors, and if the town council would like him to attend a meeting, then he is more than happy to do so. That's the application.
Lovely, thank you.
Can I make one last point, please?
Yes.
At the moment, it's 1 o'clock with a half-hour drinking time to 1:30. That doesn't mean that people leave the car park at 1:30. They stand outside, they chat, they leave later than that. If it's going to be 1:30 Friday and Saturday, with last orders, with the drinking up time of 2 o'clock, they're going to be in the car park after 2 o'clock. People don't leave in that half an hour and jump straight quietly in their cars. They tend to chat in the car park after they leave the pub. And if it's going to be 2 o'clock, it's actually going to be later than that people leave. Thank you.
Thank you for those observations. If I could just ask, before we go to our deliberations, our licensing officer, have we had any previous complaints about the Skinners come to our licensing?
I can't see anything come to light until the applications come in.
Thank you for that. Before we leave, any quick further questions?
May I just, very quick question, please? It worries me a little that one of the objectors only knew about the meeting because there was an A4 sign on a wall or a gate or somewhere. How many people actually know about this, and how many people know that you're hoping through the licensing committee to obtain this license to half an hour later? It does worry me because when I said it is evolving slowly, there
Councillor
will
Cousins,
be people who don't know.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
Michael will be able to address that question.
Within the Licensing Act, there is a requirement that the premises has to display a blue notice at the premises and a newspaper public notice, and I can confirm that they both were compliant.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, we'll go into our deliberations. Thank you. If you can bear Thank you all for your patience waiting for us. Obviously, we've made our decision today, which I will just read out to you all. The subcommittee has given careful consideration to this application, the premises being the Skinners at Station Road, Manningtree, Essex, CO11 1DX, with the applicant being Punch Taverns Limited. In reaching its decision, we have taken into account the views expressed by the applicant and the objectors. The Council has considered statutory guidance and the Licensing Authority's policy. It has also considered the licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Alongside the application, the committee considered the additional evidence documents provided at the hearing. The current opening hours of the premises are 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock on Mondays to Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 01:30 on Fridays and Saturdays, and 10 a.m. till 23:30 p.m. on Sundays. The applicant in his application proposes to amend the sale of alcohol on and off the premises from 10 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays, and Sundays 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Michael Cook, summarising the application, Ewan McGregor, representative from TLT, made representations on behalf of the applicant. In Mr McGregor's representations, he confirmed the application had been revised with Sunday's proposed amended hours withdrawn, with the Friday and Saturday hours to remain as proposed. It was confirmed that 3 objectors, namely objectors 1, 5 and 8, have agreed to withdraw their objection in acceptance of the amendment and condition imposed. Objectors 3, 9 and 10 have not responded, and objectors 2, 4, 6 and 7 insisted their objections remain. There is concern of antisocial behaviour with the ongoing licence as expressed in written objections alongside the verbal objections presented in today's hearing. The committee's decision is to reject the application as its negativity impacts on one or more of the licensing objectives. The decision will be communicated to the relevant persons in writing, and appeal to this decision can be made to the magistrates within 28 days. Thank you. I now close the meeting.